Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. If we haven't already met, I'm Claire Jones. I'm an author, mentor, and speaker committed to changing the world for the better through inclusive stories and practices. And we are jumping on today for my Visionaries in Transition Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring impact makers in my network to discuss the transitions that have shaped our lives and businesses. So if you're joining us, please comment, like, share below. Let us know that you're here. And today I'm talking to Kimfer. Yay.
Hi, everyone.
And we've been in each other's circles for a while now, haven't we? It's been
We have,
years.
especially through the F-bombers.
Yeah. And then I think we've recently graduated to Wonder Woman.
Yes, absolutely. Wonder Woman's dinners and just being in Seattle and the kind of work that we do in general. I think we have, been in each other's orbit for a while.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm so glad to have you here with me today. And yeah, let's jump on in. Tell me about your backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, that's a long one. So hold on to your pants, everyone. So I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion and culture practitioner. I have a practice called Inclusion Equals, which is brand new. The business isn't brand new. It used to be called My Kimisms, is now transitioned into Inclusion Equals. Been in that business for about 5 years. But the road to get there has been pretty interesting. So talk about transitions. I am a professional transitioner, I think, in general. So right. So I would say, you know how some people have the professional journey where it's like very linear. Mine is all over the place, but they all have connections, right? So people were just to hear about it sporadically, it may seem disparate and unconnected, but it actually all has a really interesting journey across. So let's start, because I think especially in DEI, you just kind of have to start about your intersections. And I think that'll be sort of helpful in understanding where we ended up. And so I am an adoptee. So that's one of my intersections. I was adopted from South Korea when I was 10. And before I was adopted, I was in an orphanage for at least a couple of those years. And so really understand what it means to deal with like insecurities, right, in general. So food insecurities, housing insecurity, just your safety and all of that. I was adopted by a really amazing family to Iowa, the farm lands, heartlands, I guess, in the early 80s. And guess what happened in the mid 80s? The farm crisis hit. So here we go. I'm 10, I was adopted when I was 10. So I was already grateful that I got adopted. So that was awesome. Got adopted. And then fairly soon after, the farm crisis hit. And so another round of food insecurity and our family story sounds like a country music lyrics. My dad ended up leaving with a neighbor's wife, and my mom had to go back to work in her 50s, and like all of those things were was quite interesting. Still did the things and made it through even college, worked multiple jobs to do that. And then where it was really interesting is I've been an artist all my life. You can actually see a few of my paintings back there. And so I had this really diverging thing that was happening, going to school for art. And then I was always working. And so then my business life was kind of doing its thing while my art life was doing its thing. And so at some point, I think my business life kind of took over, and my artist life sort of took the back seat. And so, I mean, I've worked for enterprise companies like T-Mobile twice, actually. I've been an entrepreneur multiple times. I used to have a store in Seattle called Bouncing Wall, which supported local artists and designers in the Pacific Northwest. I've worked at agency. I was at an agency in Seattle that was a marketing B2B marketing agency for about 9 years. And before I left the organization, I was the vice president and executive creative director. So it was a really nice blend of my creative background and my business and all of that. But what really changed even further in my life was when I went back to get my degree, to get my master's. I decided to go get an MBA. And so I took an executive MBA program through Seattle University. And for those of you that are maybe know Seattle University, they're a Jesuit university. And, for me personally, I'm not a huge, I'm not associated with Christian religion or anything like that, but I do really like the way that the Jesuit education works.
Interesting.
They really focus on this idea of you live in a global commons, right? And especially as a leader, how are you bringing your ethical leadership, your servant leadership? How are you really thinking about your actions, how it really does impact the world in a macro and microeconomic way, right?
Yeah.
And so that really was it was beyond a transition at that point. It was a transformation, I think, for me. And that's when I decided to shift really from the work that I've been doing at the agency. I was already doing a lot of talks and really focused on the organization culture, building a diverse creative team, and really looking at what does marketing and all of that, and how do you really do that in an inclusive way, and really showing diversity. This was back in early 2010s, right? So before even what we know of DEI as now, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
so
very infancy stage at the time.
Yeah. And so I think that transition into what I do now, where I'm focused on DEI with company's culture and brand in mind, it was a really easy shift from what I was doing, which was, brand, and then was working on culture and really DEI as we know it now. So there you go. There's my short version of my life story in a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I find fascinating in that story. Like, one, I really understand that split between creative life and business life. Like, I understand that so much because I got my BA in art history. Like, I thought I was going to be in the art industry world up until like age 22 was like that split point for me when like I got thrust into the real world in an economy that was still recovering from the recession at the time.
Yeah.
And the arts industry took a huge hit in that recession, and no one was hiring, no one. And like, if they were hiring, they wanted like PhDs. And I'm like, I'm not going back for another 4 years to get a piece of paper that tells you that I can do what I already know I can do. So that's what actually spurred my entrance into the business world and being an entrepreneur, because I was like, well, if no one else is going to hire me for a living wage position, because I was already on food stamps working for other people, I might as well be on food stamps working for myself.
Yeah.
So I understand that really well, but also this point that you brought up about the whole Jesuit ethical approach to education is absolutely fascinating to me too, because I don't know much about that world at all. And it's actually quite encouraging for me to hear that there are people and educational institutions out there that are focusing on the ethical implications of business leadership, because that in itself is such a huge topic nowadays, especially in late stage capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, really, like one of our first, so what was really different about that compared to, for example, I'm also an alum of UW, right? So UW has a Foster School of Business. It's an amazing MBA program. And for me, like, I consider that as well. And this isn't about like, you choose what you need to choose. But the thing that really drew me was that whole aspect of, yes, I can get my understanding of my accounting and my finances and all of that stuff, and looking at it from a, higher business lens. But this idea of leadership first, one of the first things that we did was do a social justice project. The first things that we did was really focused on leadership. And also one of the first books that we had to read was on all the isms out there. And so learning about that. And, so I just think that really had a profound change in how I approach and my why, my values, how I want to show up in the world, and how do I bring purpose to what I do, and how I bring that out so that way there is impact that is hopefully helpful to the greater good.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing almost this endemic right now of unethical corporate leadership.
Oh my gosh.
And I find it fascinating.
Can we say Elon Musk right up on the top of that list?
Yeah.
And the Twitter dumb going on right now.
Oh, there's so much. I mean, we can even talk about the Netflix thing that happened recently. Yeah. There are so many examples of major corporations throwing their consumers under the bus in the name of profits.
Yeah.
In the name of putting profits over people. And I think this ethical leadership thing that we're talking about here just reverses that people over profits. And I really do think that we're seeing so many examples of that, but we're also seeing so many examples of the consumers fighting back. I mean, we see that, let's talk about Spotify back in the day when Spotify had a bunch of Joe Rogan podcasts that were inherently offensive and stuff like that. And so many people canceled their Spotify premium subscriptions that Spotify was forced to remove those podcasts from the platform. We look at Wizards of the Coast recently with their whole open gaming license fiasco that's going on. And they, again, reversed their decision after 40,000 consumers left their platform in 24 hours. And then again, we're seeing it with the Netflix thing recently, and their whole trying to share anti-sharing passwords and that whole thing. And they say that it was a mistake that it was released to the public, that it was a draft that wasn't supposed to go out to the public. And so we're seeing this dynamic play out in real time right now. And DEI in general is just being attacked all over the board. I've been posting a lot about that lately with my alma mater, New College of Florida, with Ron DeSantis and all of the stuff that's
oh my goodness
there. The governor is using my alma mater as an example for killing DEI in the state. And it's an entire college that is now at the whim of politicking. It's wild that this is going on, but there's a lot going on right now.
There's a lot. Yeah. What's challenging is it is easier to focus on these, right? Because one, you don't want it to exist. You don't want to see it, I think, in general. Totally. Obviously there is a group of people that do want it. But I think, for me, doom and gloom, I can't live in doom and gloom, or I will shrivel up in a little puddle and get on that couch and not do anything. I think part of it is, I think those of us that are trying to do these kind of work has an innate sense of prosperity and positivity, because you can't move forward if it's if you're constantly thinking about the glass is half empty.
I honestly believe that anti-capitalism is the ultimate abundance mindset, because they're
in an abundance mindset to make anything move forward, because scarcity, it only thing it does is you just want to grasp on tighter and harder. Totally. And
well, that brings up an important question too, is what lessons have you learned through all of these transitions that you've gone through?
Well, I think there's a few different ones, right? So from a business side, I would say, for those folks that are, first of all, we know about the great transition, the great resignation, whatever you want to call it. And then now we've got
crisis that we're going through.
Yes. And then we have all the tech layoffs that are happening in preparation for yeah, I don't know, so yes, possible recession. Again, back to the capitalism here, right, in full play. I think, some of the things that people fear is like, if they don't have that traditional model of moving, they feel like they're going backwards. And you know what? For me, sometimes going backwards is moving forward. Moving horizontally, something new, different, it's all okay. So I think transitions are ultimately occurring because there's change happening, right? And change, I think, ultimately can be good. And change also helps you to be innovative. And that could be about yourself too. Innovate yourself and think about transitions in ways that are, again, with that, if you can, with that abundance mindset. I realize that abundance mindset sometimes is also from coming a place of privilege.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
But I know that abundance mindset can happen even when you are in a life scarcity. Does that make sense? There's a difference.
Yes.
You can be in a life scarcity, right? All the things you could have had, food insecurity, safety insecurity, whatever, all of those things, but there's a difference in your mindset and how you approach. So for me, that's the big thing. So I think from a business perspective, for those that are thinking about transitions, especially for those of you that might be really impacted by this tech layoffs, there are other ways. I always think of it as what is a good adjacent. Adjacent is a good way to expand your knowledge base and what you do, and take those things that you're really good at and your skill sets and be able to bring it as well. So I think about like that transition from me being a marketing vice president and executive creative director adjacent into the DEI practice because of what I was doing before, right? So there's that kind of thing from a business side. And then transitions from a personal perspective is that I'm like, I think have proven to myself over and over again that I'm resilient. And so that's been a really good, and I know people use that word intensely, like you need to have resilience, and what does that mean really ultimately? But I think, for me is that I know how to roll with the punches, and I am resilient. And maybe it's because such an early age, I knew what, ultimately shit looks like. And so if I can survive all of that, like, bring it on. I can survive anything, And so I think maybe that's my biggest thing, is that all the challenges has set me up to be, by this adult. I'm going to be 50 this year. I don't even know. I don't even understand how that happened. But, I think those are some of the things that I've learned through all of these transitions, is that I just get stronger and I get more purposeful, and I get more comfortable with myself, right?
Yeah.
Comfort in who I am and how I become.
Yeah. And I think it's also a comfort of just change as a process, like change is constant. There's no getting away from change. Like I was speaking to someone the other day about, you can't step in the same river twice, because change, it's always going to be a different river when you step in it. And you can't just leave something and expect it to not be untouched by the passage of time.
Yeah. Right?
It's going to be affected in some shape or form. And I think the more we get comfortable with accepting the change process and just knowing to expect it, even, I think is a powerful skill set of just being like, look, it may be painful right now. It may be chaotic right now. I may feel like I'm losing my mind right now, but this too will change. Like that's something that my grandmother always said that almost made me mad sometimes. I'm like, what do you mean it's going to change? I don't want this particular thing to change. But it's not really, change isn't a moral judgment. There's no good, there's no bad when it comes to change. It just is, and it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. So you might as well accept the process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, just that whole analogy you were using about the river. So if you think about it, if we're all floating down the river and you're deciding to stand still like a rock because you don't want the change to happen, guess what's happening? It means that you're actually going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact that everyone is moving forward. So you may seem like you're putting down roots or whatever it might be and standing still, but really you're not actually standing still because everyone else is moving forward. That puts you further and further back. So that's what I always talk about, like, is like, you can only stay at a plateau for so long.
Yeah.
Or you're sliding backwards because others are moving. Even if you're not doing anything, others are moving forward. So thus you're sliding backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so let's wrap up with some practical tips and tools that you've used to support yourself during these times of change. Like when everything does go sideways, what do you rely on in those times?
Well, that's a really big, wide question, right? So, okay, so I would say, the reason why I say that's a big question is because I keep thinking back is, what do you need when you're like in a financial crisis? It's a very different thing than when you're like, you're not having to worry about your finances so much, right? And so I think just generally, I would say rely on your network. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Who are your people? Have you created a network of people? Who are your people that you surround yourself with? For me, I have a really strong family. And when I say family, I mean people who have been chosen to be my family.
Found family.
Right. So we talk about family in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
As an adoptee, I don't have blood relations. I have just like, even if you did have blood relations, they're accidental relationships because you don't have a choice in how you get brought into that, right? But even beyond that, these family members that I talk about are chosen to be my family. And that actually includes some of my adopted family. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because I have chosen them to be part of that. And I think, just having that sense of others around you, it's super, super important. We're not meant to be isolated by ourselves. We are social creatures. Even if you're introverted, this isn't about introversion or extroversion.
Totally.
We are social creatures. We will atrophy without others. And so I think just depending on others and knowing that they're there for you. So whenever you have those like questions where you feel embarrassed to ask for help, or if you feel like you're not good enough, and that's why you have to think of it the reverse way. Would you do that for them if they came to you? And the answer most likely is absolutely yes, right? So then I think just this idea of like swallowing whatever ego pride that you might have and extending the request, people are willing to help. And I think I'm always amazed by who those people might be, even outside of that, chosen family circle. So I think generally, that is the best advice I would have is really rely on your network that you have created.
I was actually journaling about this the other day, and like whether you call it your tribe, whether you call them your cheerleaders, whether you call them your found family or a wisdom circle, I've even seen thrown around as a term to describe this.
Or your personal board of advisors.
Yes.
I like that one too.
Totally. Yeah. It's like you kind of have to intentionally select those seats of the people who surround you. And we get better at that as we age as well, because a lot of those circles are default chosen for us when we're growing up, like whether it's through the schools that we go to, whether it's through the sports that we attend, whether it's through, the jobs that we get starting out. And it really does take time and effort and intention to build those circles. And that is a huge lesson that I've also learned over the years, because I am a classic introvert. I do have to admit, and so I have to be super intentional of like how I choose to spend that social energy when I do have it. And it really is a tool that will support you in good times and in bad.
Yeah. And the flip side too on this is being kind to yourself. I think is really important. That's the flip side of that coin. So when you're feeling embarrassed to have to reach out, you need to be kind to yourself and know that if it was reversed, like I said, they would do it for you. And so be kind to yourself and know that changes can be hard, transitions can be hard, and just giving yourself grace is super,
Mhm.
super important. And don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
You are you. You are absolutely perfect the way that you are, and how you arrive at things and how you might struggle. Perfection is not about like everything is ideal. It's about you are made perfectly the way you are made to be,
Yeah.
and how you decide to move forward is another story, and what kind of help you need to make that happen is another story. But ultimately, like, don't compare yourself. Like, if I were to compare myself with other people that are going to be hitting 50, like I could again, back to that whole like, getting into a fetal position on my couch over there. But then again, others are gonna look at me and go like, whoa, like that's so comparison,
Yeah.
it's such a huge spectrum. And
Totally.
so I think ultimately, like, how are you making your decisions? And be kind to yourself in those, I think is super important.
Yeah. I mean, you
So,
have to be on your own team.
yeah.
Like, I see this a lot in the personal development space. It's like we kind of like treat ourselves as an enemy sometimes.
Oh, we are the worst enemy of ourselves. We're the worst critics of ourselves.
Yeah.
Our, like the self-talk,
Yeah.
self-talk back. Whew.
Yeah. And especially if you're
Intense.
caught in those perpetual personal development cycles as well.
Mhm.
Like if you're constantly trying to improve yourself, that's actually a form of self-sabotage. Because
Absolutely.
you're telling yourself time and time again, you need to be better, 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 you need to be better. And it's like if that's the constant refrain in your head, like you're treating yourself as an opponent more so than a collaborator. And I think it's so important to just be like, yes, I'm on my own team and we are working together rather than against each other.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we can definitely be our worst enemy, worst sabotager.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why I said you need to give yourself lots of grace, and know that you are where you are, and where you are right now is what made you the way you are, and just keep on moving. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what would happen if you treated yourself as a teammate more so than like that unruly child that needs to be tamed and managed?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like, just think of how do you treat your best friend, or your whoever may be really important to you, your sibling, your partner, your child, whoever. Like,
Yeah.
can you like treat yourself in that kind of manner?
Yeah, that just reminded me of a TikTok that I saw once of this woman who started doing her positive affirmations in the morning as if she were talking to her dog. So it
Oh.
was like, oh, you're such a good girl. Oh, you're doing so good. The abundance is flowing your way.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, that's great.
And
No,
it's
I had a coach. I had a executive coach who Elena, she was great. Just loved her. And if anyone gets an opportunity to have a coach, I think you should,
totally.
if you are afforded that opportunity, take it. And one of the things that helped me, also something that we still do as a family, my family, is we do gratefulness at every dinner, right? What are we grateful for today? Not
Mm,
about what we want or in the past tense, but like today, so that we stay in the moment.
yeah.
We do that. And then also, I have to say I've kind of slipped on this, but I used to do my daily affirmations, which were like, I am strong,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Today is a great day. Not today will be a great day. I hope today is a good, like today is a great day. I am strong and I've got this. And we used to
Mhm.
do this. My son and I would used to walk. I'd walk him to his school bus. I mean, he's too old now, but
Mhm.
we would do the whole like, today is a great day. I'm strong, and then got this. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
there's something to be said about like getting your mental space. Which
Totally.
reminds me, I think I need to bring that back in a more consistent way.
Yeah, one of my favorites is a victory list. Like I list all of the victories that I had for the day, even
Nice.
if it's just like I did the dishes.
I love that. Yeah.
It's like I have to celebrate those small wins. Like I had this day, I think it was on Monday this week, where I had like, let's say 7 things on my to-do list. And I successfully finished 6 of them, but it was that last one that I didn't finish that made me
Yeah.
happy for the rest of the day. I was like, you are awful because you didn't finish this one thing. And so I had to do a journaling and be like, look at all these other things that I accomplished. Let's
Yeah.
focus on those rather than the one thing that didn't work out today.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yep. Totally get that.
All right. Well, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, this has been really fun conversation, Claire. Thanks for having me. And hopefully, like, even if it's just a tiny little bit that I said that might have resonated with someone, that would be awesome. Ultimately, like, do you, be you,
Yeah.
and know that change is constant.
Yes.
And how you transition through them is an important aspect of who you are and who you become. So yeah, good luck. Good luck with you all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm giving you a high five already. You're doing awesome. Do it.
Yeah. This is honestly why I started this series, because I was having all of these conversations in private calls and I was like, we need to publicize these.
Right?
Because,
Yeah.
like, even if it's just that nugget that you catch, that nugget can also change your life. So
yeah.
This is powerful stuff that we're talking about. And I'm always really happy to see the overlying themes of all of these interviews too. Those are fascinating.
I bet.
Yeah, because it's a different conversation every single time, but there are themes that we touch on with each conversation. And I love it. So audience, we definitely encourage you to reach out and share your own insights and stories and lessons, visions, transitions with us as well. We'd love to know how they have impacted you in your own lives. So special thanks to Kimfer for joining me today.
Thanks, Claire. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So please comment, like, subscribe below. Check out Linktree/Claire Joins for all of my links. And then where can people find out more about you?
Oh, well, since I just recently changed my company name, please find me at inclusionequals.com. My social media is currently being shifted over, so you'll find Inclusion Equals for right now _ because Instagram has changed their rules again for a while. And you can also still find me at my Kimisms, which I think is now changed to a 1 in the end. All of that. Yeah. So until 14-day, I guess there's a 14-day period nowadays. So anyway, so you can find me there. You can always find me on LinkedIn, probably the most active. I'm on LinkedIn, not recently because I've been traveling and family stuff and been getting over cold, flu. But other than that, yeah, you can find me in all the places. Inclusion Equals. Yeah, go check it out.
Yeah. And I'll make sure that at least the website's in the description for everyone.
That would be awesome.
So until next time, please remember that your authentic self is extraordinary. It is wonderful, and you owe it to yourself to create the elevated life that you know you are capable of. Take care, everyone.